The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Glen Alexander.
Hey Cowboy fans, today's episode is brought to you by Oakley Burklow, your go-to independent insurance agent and proud OSU alum. Oakley helps with home, auto, life, and business insurance. Working with multiple top-rated insurance companies to find you the right coverage at the right price. Licensed in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Call 918-280-9068 or email oakley.burklow@connectmyinsurance.com. Personal service, honest advice, and a fellow poke helping you protect what matters. Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast, the Glen Alexander podcast here on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, someone I definitely look up to in the whole entire media space, but definitely look up to for his Big 12 comments and conversations, especially in regards to Mike Gundy. John Kurtz here at John Kurtz Show on YouTube or the Open for Business newsletter. I'll have both here linked below in the description wherever you're listening. John, thanks so much for joining.
Hey, Calvin, great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I gotta be honest here. I heard you do a podcast with someone else I look up to as well, Carson Cunningham from the Pistol Firing blog, and Carson's a fellow Oklahoma State grad, fellow sports media guy with Oklahoma State, fellow O'Colly guy. Heard you do that podcast, and I've been hooked on all your Big 12 information ever since. So doing a great job there with it. Thanks for telling all of us Big 12 fans kind of what we can look forward to and covering the games and stuff.
No, absolutely, man. I love it. I'm a K-State guy, but I traveled around covering them for 10 years, so I feel like I've kind of been around the block in the league and grew up with the conference, being a K-State fan. So yeah, love the Big 12 dearly.
Well, we're recording this the day after K-State's win over UCF. We never like seeing UCF win as Oklahoma State fans, at least in my book. So thanks for that one. Although it does make me a little worried about our matchup coming up. I don't think that is our easiest matchup coming up against K-State later on this year in our schedule anymore. But who knows? Everything changes all the time. I really want to bring you on here to talk to you a little bit about breaking news, but Todd Grantham getting fired from Oklahoma State. But really, I talked about Mike Gundy and his legacy and next kind of head coaching opportunities you think will be possible for the Pokes and kind of what kinds of head coaches maybe the Cowboys should be looking at. So I wanted to ask you here kind of briefly, you've covered it well on your channel, of course, but what is a Big 12 fan, someone who didn't go to Oklahoma State like myself or who hasn't only known Gundy as the head coach? I mean, I'm 32, but 02, 03 with Les Miles is still a little hazy when I'm looking back on second and third grade. So can you tell us a little more about what you think of Mike Gundy as a K-State guy and a Big 12 guy overall?
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy even to hear you say Les Miles in 02, 03. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm 36, so like I was definitely cognizant and remember that, but that seems like an eternity ago. And like Mike Gundy's just so synonymous with Oklahoma State football that you almost block that out of your mind that like anybody else has been the head coach there. Look, I mean, I'll admit, like I was a little bummed by it. Like I totally understand why Oklahoma State did it and even did it when they did. I think that's a smart move, right? I mean, I think you look at like everybody is making moves to fire their coach right now. Arkansas just got rid of Sam Pittman today, right? Like there's a race. It's quicker and quicker teams are trying to fire coaches to get to the race to find the next guy. So I understand it, but yeah, as a Big 12 fan, you know, somebody who has a general, like, I want the league to do well. I really care deeply about the league. Mike Gundy has been one of the, like, kind of Mount Rushmore figures of the Big 12, frankly. I mean, he came in, close to a decade into the conference's life and has been one of the most successful coaches throughout the entire tenure of not only his stay in Stillwater, but the league from now on. I think it's fair to say that, and it's not just the winning. Like he was such a good personality. He was a guy that legitimately drew attention to the league because he was a fun, engaging personality. He had the quirks. I mean, as silly as this may sound, like the mullet, like that was a thing people talked about, knew. It made him more of like a magnetic figure and helped people to pay a little bit more attention to the Big 12. So I think all that's been really, really important to the lifeblood of the league throughout the time that he's been there. And like, that's why we love college football. Like we love the characters of the game. Like, for instance, you look at the impact that like a Mike Leach had, you know, I mean, that's not a guy that's not like Nick Saban who won a bunch of national championships, but when he passed, I mean, you saw the outpouring of love from all corners of the college football world because he was one of those personalities and also had the skill level to go with it. And Gundy has definitely been that. As a K-State guy, I obviously see a lot of kinship there between Bill Snyder and Mike Gundy, and like what they meant to each university and the football program, and even frankly, like their style and how it ended. I remember telling Carson that when we did that interview, like I was watching the end of things here at Oklahoma State for Mike Gundy, and I was like, man, this is so reminiscent to me of 2018 at K-State when I was still on the beat, covering the team every day. I was in every single press conference that year, and, you know, it was getting more contentious with the media. It was clear the product on the field was slipping. You knew it was going to be kind of an awkward situation because it was becoming very clear what the move needed to be for the university, but how do you do that with a legend? How do you handle that? And look, Oklahoma State was much more aggressive than K-State was with it, but I think some of that is dictated by the time and the era that we're in. It's changed dramatically since where we were at in 2018. But yeah, I mean, guy that should have a statue at the stadium, much like Bill Snyder now does. Obviously, the stadium is named after him as well. And the other thing I always think about with both of those guys, you know, Bill Snyder twice came very close to playing for a national championship. Once in particular in 1998, when K-State just had to win the Big 12 championship game against Texas A&M, blew a 17-point lead, and lost in overtime. Devastating. Mike Gundy, obviously the Iowa State thing, and then I pointed out on Twitter, I was like, even after the loss to Iowa State in 2011, I mean, they still had an objectively better resume than Alabama out of the SEC and should have gone anyway. But, you know, I digress. It is what it is. We got the LSU-Alabama rematch. But I always, you know, for both guys, I'm like a little bit heartbroken and sad thinking about that, where I'm like, man, both of those guys were good enough to and deserving of playing for or winning a national championship. And it really sucks that neither got the opportunity to do that. So I think that's definitely a parallel from like a K-State, Oklahoma State standpoint. Frankly, I think the universities and the football programs as a whole just have a ton of parallels. Stillwater and Manhattan have a lot of parallels together. I've been to so I covered K-State full time from 2011 to 2021. I covered 4 or 5 games in Stillwater at least. The first one was a great one in 2011. So I've seen that atmosphere, how good it can be. Same with what's in Manhattan. The towns feel very similar. So I feel somewhat of a connection with Oklahoma State because of all that stuff. And for that reason, yeah, I've been a little melancholy about the Mike Gundy situation, even knowing that it was becoming an inevitability and frankly was totally inevitable after the loss to Tulsa.
Yeah, it's just bizarre to me that it happened because I've got 2 younger brothers who are 18 and 20 respectively, and they've only ever known Gundy. I mean, he's been around longer or was around longer with Oklahoma State than their life, so far. So it's just kind of an odd thing to think about. But when we're talking about the next guy for Oklahoma State, of course, the difference in Todd Grantham moving on, I probably could have seen that right on the wall here happening at some point after the season. Just kind of shocked it happened again. Another coaching staff change during the season. Do you want to touch on that at all briefly? I just know that news just dropped today.
Yeah, actually, I was, as you mentioned that earlier, I was like, I kind of need to get your take on that because I was very interested to see that. I mean, at this point, I'm thinking, okay, so what advantage are you gaining by that? I mean, I get it. Like you want to go win games this year. If you feel like it's going to be something that gives you a better opportunity to win games this year, then definitely go for it. Like you don't want to just write this off as a complete lost season and have 2, back-to-back over seasons in Big 12 play. I get it. But yeah, I was a little surprised to think that would make a huge difference because now I guess is there a younger guy on staff that's taken over now as the interim that is given an audition sort of thing here? I was genuinely curious about what that really meant.
Yeah. So what the odd thing to me is that I think it's Cliff Bowen is taking over. His son is the 3rd string quarterback, or I guess 2nd string right now.
It was Clint Bowen.
Yeah. So I think it's Cliff. I was trying to Google on the fly.
I think it's Clint Bowen, right? He was the interim guy at Kansas. He's a KU guy that had been around for a while. Yeah.
And he's got former defensive coordinator experience, former head coaching experience, I think in high school and stuff as well too. So he's been around for a little bit, and I think that's kind of the nice deal, really, overall, that he's been around. He's got some previous experience in the role, and also he's probably not leaving after this year unless his son is as well too. So maybe you kind of have that continuity kind of flowing over. One would hope, but then again, I'm always so cautious to think somebody's coming back next season just when everyone can enter the portal at all times, it seems, and then a guy could backdate his entry into the portal, all type of fun stuff. So it's just kind of who's who of sorts, and from knowing some people still working for Oklahoma State athletics, they were all on the same page of hey, Weiberg's not going to get his contract until you fire Gundy, because it's going to look so weird if Weiberg gets his contract written down, extended, and Gundy's still there. It's like, why are you doing that? You're putting the cart before the horse. Weiberg's got to do the hard thing before he gets the payoff. Now, I think that's more semantics than anything, but on to the next point here, I guess. Wanted to ask you kind of, who you think would make a good fit for an Oklahoma State head coach next year, and kind of continuing on. Would it be a guy that is got NFL head coaching experience or NFL offensive coordinator experience? Several friends and I have kind of thrown around, oh, hey, would you be able to pry Mike McDaniel away from Miami? Because Nick Saban used to be Miami head coach, and Mike McDaniel's not doing the greatest at Miami right now. But besides that, it's really Zac Robinson talking about NFL guys for Oklahoma State fans in all seriousness. And I'm a little cautious on that, but I want to hear your take on on what kind of guy would work best for Oklahoma State in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, really, the Zac Robinson thing for me just starts with, like, it sure sounds like that's the guy that's going to be at the top of the list, or if not that, I think, who was it? Was it Pete Nako? Somebody had a report today that he was going to be on the very short list. I think it's pretty obvious that that's going to be somebody that gets targeted. The thing that I do like about that from Oklahoma State's standpoint, and this is never the way I don't get this twisted. This is never the way I would want to start with thinking about a head coaching hire, is like somebody that will stay around long term. But if you have somebody that seems really qualified, that would be a really enticing hot name, and there's somebody that's an alum, kind of like Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, sort of a plus with his candidacy. He was a young up and coming coordinator, but you're like, oh, he's also an alum. So like, better chance that if we do strike gold here, that he would stick around long term. I think that's an advantage. I mean, I like the fact that he's been in the NFL, worked in the NFL. I think there's like less difference between the two games these days, now that it is a little bit more professionalized in the college space. The part with Zac Robinson that I don't know is, like, I was bringing that up to some people last week, and like, obviously I know the Falcons got shut out last week and have been struggling. And so I don't get a chance to follow the NFL super closely at all, because Sundays are generally just working through all the college stuff that I missed on Saturday. So I'm like, I don't have a good enough grasp on like what the Falcons situation is, how good Zac Robinson's been in the NFL. I'm hyper aware of the name because he was at one point committed to K-State way back in the day. And I was expecting him to be a K-State quarterback, but I just don't know, like, from an NFL perspective, how hot of a name really is that, but it sure seemed like that was the way it's headed, that he's going to get a good look. So I think from my perspective, it seems to make a lot of sense, certainly as far as a fit goes. But, I'm glancing back at the hot board that I saw from On3 here, where they were throwing out a lot of names that I think are all very intriguing. I mean, like GJ Kinne at Texas State. I think that's a guy that's definitely going to get a Power 4 job at some point. Has done a really nice job with that program. They brought up like Jeff Traylor. Frankly, I'm kind of surprised he hasn't gotten or taken a Power 4 job yet. Alex Golesh made the list from USF. He seems to me like somebody that's probably bound for like an SEC job. But if you can interest somebody like that, I think that would be a fantastic hire. My thought with that was just, I don't know if anybody from the Big 12 would be able to pull in somebody like that. And then, if you're kind of looking at like hot up and coming offensive coordinators, I know K-State fans are scared about Colin Klein being one of the names that might pop up there, because everything I have heard on Colin Klein is that this is probably going to be the offseason that he gets a Power 4 job. Now, you're hearing whispers around K-State, and it's been no secret that I don't think Chris Kleiman is going to coach for a super long time. So people are wondering if that transition is something that could happen. But I mean, if it doesn't, I think Colin Klein would be silly not to be very interested in that job if there's mutual interest from Oklahoma State's side. So I could see him going a lot of different ways. I saw Andy Staples from On3 this week said that people would be surprised by how many people want that job, how much interest there's been. So that's part of the advantage of making the move now. I mean, you're in September. You have a lot of time to back channel and gauge interest. If there really is a ton of interest in the job, which again, reportedly there is, I think that's one of the big advantages that you have here, that you can really try to play the field and see what there is, see what all's out there.
Well, when it comes to, what covering college football for so long, do you think a former guy who's got college experience is kind of the way to go right now? That's at least the way I lean mentally, of a guy who can bring in some fellow guys, transfer them in that type of shape, other than bring in Zac Robinson, who may be able to do so as well, just I mean, in Los Angeles with the Rams, he was an offensive analyst and kind of quarterbacks coach. He wasn't doing the whole offense coordinator until he got to the Falcons. And now this is his second season doing it, which he's doing fine. But as someone who formerly worked on out in Los Angeles, kind of nearby that coaching staff, I'll say coaching staff adjacent because I was with the other team in LA. But I want to ask you, which do you think just works better as a system format here for a college? Is it bringing in a current college guy who can kind of get maybe Kirk Cignetti, lofty expectations, but bring over the guys from James Madison to Indiana and then all of a sudden succeed a lot? Or would it be, hey, there's a lot of intriguing factors with bringing in Zac Robinson for other ideas that I just really not aware of? I mean, guys maybe coming in that want to, of course, play in an NFL type of system and that type of stuff too?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm kind of at a point right now where I feel like the landscape has shifted so much in college athletics that I'm a little bit more open to different possibilities. And I realize that like a head coach is different than an athletic director or a conference commissioner, but I think you've seen across the landscape of college sports how much hiring patterns have changed. You know, for instance, conference commissioners, nobody's hiring like old athletic directors anymore, like lifers in college sports. They're hiring guys like Brett Yormark who come from the entertainment industry, or, I mean, it's the same thing in the Big Ten, right? I mean, the SEC is kind of like the last league right now that still has one of those guys in Greg Sankey, who I think is clearly very good at his job, unfortunately, but most everybody else is turning to like the entertainment industry. Kevin Warren, who was with the Big Ten before Tony Petitti, he had a background like that. George Kliavkoff was hired from like MGM in Las Vegas with the Pac-12 there for a while. So it's become so much different that it just feels like the tectonic plates are shifting so much with the sport that there probably is more room for like some innovative thinking in terms of who you're hiring. So I guess the way I would look at it is I think of like, if it's K-State hiring a coach, my interest there would be like, I don't know, let's get creative with this. Let's see who is interested. And I wouldn't pigeonhole myself by, hey, I need this box checked, which means I need college experience or I need head coaching experience. I'd be open to all of it. I mean, I think this day and age in college athletics, you're seeing guys succeed with a wide variety of different backgrounds, and people are being more, look, like Michael Vick has a job, Trent Dilfer has a job. Obviously, not all these guys have been super successful, but Deion Sanders has a job, Bill Belichick. Like, the programs are going a lot of different ways right now to try and get it done. Mixed results, but I would just not want to pigeonhole myself based on one factor.
Gotcha. Well, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but why do you think Oklahoma State would fire Gundy right now? There's kind of rumors out there that he was given the opportunity to coach through the rest of the season, and maybe he chose to leave earlier. I'm not sure necessarily how much to read into either point, but why? What are the advantages of firing a coach 3 games into the season?
I think you're basically just trying to get in line as quickly as you can to be out there searching for a head coach. Like, things move so much more quickly now, like especially in terms of like you need to get someone hired really quickly by the end of the season to be able to get guys in through the transfer portal, right? Like, hit the first portal window. There's no time to mess around anymore. And it's even if you are there, you're trying to recruit or re-recruit the current roster or the roster that you're inheriting. There's just so much to do. There's so much more to do for these coaches. It's always been kind of a year-round job, but it is way more so now, where you're just in it every single day. There's no time for a vacation, no time for a break. And so the more that you can be one of the first schools out there looking, like I mentioned earlier, like kind of back channeling, gauging what the interest is there from others across the country. I know you can't like officially do anything with someone who's still coaching a season right now, but you can sure get a lot set up behind the scenes. You can make sure you have your ducks in a row. And I don't know how much the schools care about this, but from a fan base standpoint, it sure does take care of a lot of anxieties that the fan base might have, sitting there thinking like, man, this is clearly not working. Like, what's going to happen here? And there's just so much angst from the fans where I feel like now it's like everybody can kind of exhale, breathe, fully support and get behind the team for the rest of the year. I remember the K-State fan base, I think some people anyway being a little bit conflicted in 2018, like, man, coming down the stretch run of the season, like if this team somehow squeaks into a bowl game, which they almost did that year, I think it would have become a trickier situation to manage what you were going to do with Bill Snyder and try and find a new coach and do it in time. It just eliminates any of that anxiety from a fan base having to worry about it. The outside vibe I just pick up from Oklahoma State is it seemed like everybody was ready to like act swiftly, show that they're serious about this, show that they're serious about making sure that the program is in good hands and moving in the right direction and not wanting to have any wasted time or energy with letting it flounder there. So to me, it feels like a combination of all of those factors is probably where the advantage lies.
Well, myself as an Oklahoma State fan, I mean, grew up and there was one place that I was going. It was Oklahoma State no matter what. But I may be too short-sighted here, but I've moved around the country a little bit. I kind of know how attractive the Oklahoma State job is, but maybe not as well as some others. What do you think makes the Oklahoma State job attractive job over maybe other UCLA or Arkansas, or just why is it so attractive in general for head coach to kind of come over and take reins of?
Well, I definitely think it's above the UCLA job. The UCLA job, I feel like I get that it's in the Big Ten, but financial resources, the support that you would have in terms of fans, there's like 20 people going to the games. Their finances have been a mess. You're just going to get pummeled in the Big Ten, and you're going to have to be traveling more than basically anybody else in the league. So I think it definitely starts higher on the list than that. I think the advantages are you've got a great fan base that really supports it. I mean, watching like the attendance the other night at the Tulsa game, despite where the program has been, I was wildly impressed with how many people are showing up there. You know that you have a great fan base, a built-in awesome home field advantage in Boone Pickens Stadium, which, back in the old Big 12, like I went to Texas multiple times, Oklahoma multiple times. Oklahoma State at night, for a big game keyed up, as good as it gets, even in the old Big 12. So you've got that. You've got a place that obviously now has a winning culture, done a lot of winning. Like, this is a program that has a name, it has a brand. Yes, it's been a bad stretch here for Oklahoma State, but they were in the Big 12 championship game 2 years ago, right? Like, it was not that long ago. And in 2021, they were there before that. Obviously, winning the Fiesta Bowl. Like, these things are not that far in the rearview mirror. So you still have a pretty established brand that I think can be brought back up to speed pretty quickly. And the one thing I would say, I don't know how many coaches think about it like this, but I would look at it and say that, if you're comparing like Auburn and Arkansas and Oklahoma State, for instance, Arkansas, you're going to be dealing with the pressure of the SEC, not just the schedule you'll have to play, which I don't think the SEC is as good at the top as it used to be, but the depth, of programs in that league is immensely difficult to deal with, especially if you are a school like Arkansas. It's going to be a tough sled to drag every single year, and you're going to be under the pressure and expectations of a fan base that's expecting a lot because it is the SEC. If you come to Oklahoma State, it's not like there's no pressure to win. There definitely is. But I think there's a much better path to like making regular playoff appearances at Oklahoma State than there is at Arkansas. So, I would argue that too about what you'd be looking at in the Big 12. And then we'll see how some of that evolves. The latest reporting around the future of the playoff is that the Big Ten's now presenting a proposal that would have equal auto bids for every conference, which would be 3 or 4. And so if that's the case, and you'd be looking at Oklahoma State like, man, how much better of a position would we be in to just lock down one of the top 3 spots in the Big 12 every single year versus trying to do that in the SEC and make our way there. So, that's kind of the way that I would evaluate it and look at it. But I think Mike Gundy's left that generally in really good hands. Maybe not like right this moment, but the overall brand of the program, the support too. Now, I think Oklahoma State has, you would probably know this better than I, but seemingly has done a lot better job of getting, even though late to the party, which was kind of Gundy's fault, it would appear, but late to the party on NIL and financial support. As long as the financial support is going to be there, and it seems to be getting much better on that front. You've got that combined with the fan base, the facilities, the Boone Pickens left behind, the recent winning, the culture, the fans, the atmosphere that you have there. There's no reason that you can't be one of the top 2 or 3 programs in your conference, which means there's no reason that you wouldn't be in the playoff or competing for a playoff spot every single year.
Well, which would be incredible. To have that kind of opportunity be presented again, it just doesn't seem like it was that far off, like you said, just 2 years ago. I, of course, just wish Mike Gundy had better luck, because I think at this point, luck was what separated us in 2021 and 2011 against Iowa State. But, take away those 2 games is kind of just an unfortunate, unlucky type of situation here and there, maybe unfortunate play, whatever, we're in the playoffs, or we're at least knocking on the door of it in 2021, no matter what. Because I mean, we were that close to it in the Big 12 championship game to say as well too. I'm curious here, guys, as I wrap up here as well. Where do you think Oklahoma State lands kind of in the new landscape here? Chad Weiberg in his most recent press conference talked about how that right now we do not have TV contracts up for bid, but once they come up to bid, we make sure Oklahoma State's in the right place because schools do get left behind. He specifically mentioned Oregon State and Washington State. And as an Oklahoma State fan, of course, I don't think that we're in the lower half of the Big 12, but I think we also could be tomorrow. I don't think the Big 12 has necessarily a big, hey, there's these 6 programs, they're all in the top half, and then there's the rest or anything like that anymore. I think it's all pretty darn even out. But what do you think here? Do you think there's any chance Oklahoma State gets left out of super conferences joining or going forward, or there's any chance that Oklahoma State's kind of maybe in those chances as well too from everything that's gone on so far?
I mean, I think the unfortunate reality is that I don't know that there's a single school in the Big 12 I could say, yeah, there's no way that school is getting left out. Like, I think that risk is there for everybody, and that's a part of what makes the league unique. It's also what makes being a fan of the Big 12 or a specific team in the Big 12 extra stressful now. I always talk about it just feels like there's an existential threat that's laying beneath the surface of any bad season. You know, I mean, 15 years ago, you have a losing season. It's like, you can tell fans to chill and stop being so upset and like, yeah, okay, I get it. You know, hey, bad season. It's all right. It's just a game, all those things. Now it's like you have a bad season and you're like, well, man, we can't be tanking as we head toward 2030 when everybody thinks that's going to be the next iteration of either a Super League or more Big Ten SEC expansion. Like, we've got to best position ourselves. You can't, you know, there's more pressure on making the next hire. If you screw up the hire and that throws off another 2 or 3 years, I mean, that is real. That is real now for, I think, everybody in the conference. Having said that, I mean, I think Texas Tech with its financial situation, at BYU with having a kind of global brand, and a lot of financial resources too. If you wanted to say, hey, they may be in a better position than some of the others, like I could start to listen to that and understand that. But beyond that, feels like almost everybody's in the same type of boat. Kansas, maybe with the basketball program, basketball is becoming more of a currency in realignment than it used to be. Still not obviously the predominant there, but it is definitely becoming a bigger deal. And the SEC doing better in basketball, I think, has fueled that. Brett Yormark, frankly, has fueled some of that, talking about decoupling basketball TV rights from football in the Big 12. So maybe if you want to argue Kansas, TCU, I guess, is another one that gets thrown in there. A Texas presence for the Big Ten and a program that, has won 12 games multiple times over the last 10, 15 years. Like, you can make little arguments here or there for, like, maybe there are 2 to 4 schools that would have a bit of a nudge above everybody else. I don't think there's any reason you can't say Oklahoma State wouldn't be at the top of the next tier of teams there. And I'm even hesitating in saying that there really is a dividing line there. I feel like most of these schools are kind of in the same boat, except for maybe, I think like your Cincinnati, Houston, UCF at the bottom of the league, still new to the Power 4 level anyway. I think they would be a clear step behind, but it's like everybody that was left behind from the Hateful Eight, if you want to call them that, the group that was left behind in the Big 12, plus the 4 corner schools. I just feel like everybody is pretty much in the same type of boat there. And it's hard to know exactly what the next iteration is going to look like. And I know, people may feel a certain way about Texas Tech and what they're doing and Cody Campbell, but I do think Cody Campbell is a guy that can hopefully help smooth some things out to allow more Big 12 teams, if not the entire league, to make the cut whenever the next iteration of all this happens. So that's, maybe not the answer everybody wants to hear, but I think unfortunately in the Big 12, it's probably the answer that everybody needs to be ready and be prepared for, is that, yeah, it could happen. I mean, it could happen to basically anybody in the league.
All right, well, very last question here as we wrap up. I don't know how much you know about GJ Kinne, and I might be putting you on the spot here, but Gary Joe just seems like a next Oklahoma State head coaching, we'll just refer to him as Gary Joe. He'd be your buddy or your uncle. Any reason why between him or Eric Morris, kind of at the lower levels that are not in the Power 4 yet, but hey, they're trending up that way. Why not why would Oklahoma State not want to hire GJ Kinne?
I guess, the risk is always there. Like, hey, what happens when you're bringing a guy up a different level? West Virginia fans might be sitting here saying, well, and we kind of thought the same thing with Neil Brown, who was at a similar type of program with Troy. And it just turned into sort of a milquetoast era where we were very mediocre, and it never really turned into a whole lot. But I'm looking at the year by year here. If you look at like Jake Spavital, never won more than 4 games in 4 years at Texas State. Nobody before GJ Kinne showed up had been to a bowl game or won 8 games. He's done that back-to-back years. They're 3-1 now. His track record definitely seems to be elevated from what was going on before there. I think there's plenty of reason to think he could be successful. I would definitely be open to it. I just think, the risk that you would be running there is, okay, well, you're dealing with a different set of challenges really at Texas State than you're going to be at Oklahoma State. Yeah, your roster could get poached at Oklahoma State. You'll have to watch that a little bit, but there's almost an inevitability to it more like at Texas State. How aggressively can you go recruit the portal when you're having to be more competitive with bigger schools in the region? There are all these different concerns about the dynamics, how much it changes at the Power 4 level versus being down a group of 6. So I think you do have to worry about that, but I certainly think he's a guy that would at least have like the floor of a Neil Brown. But the question is, how much higher is the ceiling there, and how much closer would he be able to come to actually hitting it there? So I'm not opposed to that hire at all. I wouldn't think that that's a bad hire. I think he's got a pretty good resume, and like I said, I think he will be a Power 4 head coach at some point in the next couple of years.
Awesome. Well, that's where I'm putting my feet in the boat, at least with the GJ Kinne at this point, just because I don't know, I feel like it gives us the best option to get back to a bowl game the quickest, kind of keep Oklahoma State trending upwards quicker than trending downwards for maybe another year or two, and bringing in a guy who may or may not work out. And personally, I think if Zac Robinson comes in and it doesn't go well, and all of a sudden he's the head coach with a very, very long leash because of those ties to Oklahoma State. So you want to keep those ties to Oklahoma State fans and past players. So I'd be a little bit nervous about that. But then again, why be glass half empty, Why not just be, hey, Zac Robinson comes in and all of a sudden Des Bryant's wide receivers coach and we're off to the races and it's all just, orange scented glasses from here on out. But it seems a little bit too good to be true in my book, at least. Robinson joins the staff 20 years after Gundy does, almost to the day, almost to the year exactly, But anyways, we'll wait and see, I guess. John, thanks so much here for joining the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. If you're not already, go subscribe to John's channel. I'll link it down below, John Kurtz Show. And then, of course, he writes an awesome news article. It comes to your email inbox weekly, if not multiple times a week here, open for business. It's where I get all my Big 12 info when I'm hosting the Big 12 Huddle podcast, as I do weekly as well. So, John, thanks so much here again for joining, and we'll catch you again soon.
Hey, absolutely. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Hey, Cowboy fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Oakley Burklow, your go-to independent insurance agent and proud OSU alum. Oakley helps with home, auto, life, and business insurance. Working with multiple top-rated insurance companies to find you the right coverage at the right price. Licensed in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Call 918-280-9068 or email oakley.burklow@necmyinsurance.com. Personal service, honest advice, and a fellow Poe helping you protect what matters most.